So quite the week, as it always is. But as we are starting to reach, this is week 11. We have had so many shows at this point, and the stage one finals, they loom upon us. And on that note, let's take a look at the rankings. Now, this is what we really need to refer to now, because there's not a lot of weeks left and not a lot of opportunities for players to start to climb back up, is there, Flea?
There absolutely isn't, and one of the most interesting parts when we look at the rankings is the bottom of the European side, because so far we've got Toxic, who has yet to win a single match, but then just above him, you've essentially got three people that are tied when it comes to earnings. Cooler, CNZ, and Sparty all have the exact same amount of money to their name, so that is still a very close and tight race to see who will make it out of relegation.
But then at the same time, we can look at the upper side and we can see players like Chain, who have had absolutely phenomenal showings. Every step of the way. It's why Chain currently 8-0, the real up and comer, and continuing to be so at this point, which is great to see and great to talk about. But today's action, dramiS and dooi, is going to be the first matchup of the day, and this one interests me as well because dramiS, he did have a very kind of, I think, heavy-sided first half of this stage where he had to fight a lot of heavy hitters at an early point. But he is starting to kind of, return to his form, and we do get to see the dramiS that we can grow to expect. But there's always room for him to go even further. Now, dooi, a player that is, I think, one of the more unusual players in this entire roster, and he has been since day one because he has got that kind of patented dooi patience and style. Not all the time. He is able to diversify a little bit, but if we're talking of players in particular, dooi, I think he's one of the most individual, I think is fair to say.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's definitely a clash of style and a very clear contrast between these players, right? As you mentioned yourself, dooi tends to be much more passive, reactionary when it comes to how he approaches these games. But dramiS, on the other hand, is a very fast and high flyer, right? He is widely considered to be one of the best crouch sliders in the game. He loves the stroke. He loves playing as Slash as well. And that is, of course, in a clear conflict with dooi, who will just sit on a position and wait and slowly play around everything you does up until he gets the lead and then just run with it. So very different approaches to the match is what we're going to see here.
And dooi can be a player that's really good at picking specific champions for those kind of like one magic moment frag situations that allows him to take that lead and sit on it for as long as possible by a small amount. Now, we are going to take a look at the picks and bans, and I'm curious actually to see what the journey is going to be between the two of them. And I do wonder if the champions will reflect that. So Blood Covenant, well, we'll come back and check it in a second. There we go. We're back. So the Slash being removed. Good idea, taking that away from dramiS. However, the Athena was taken anyway versus the Ranger. Molten Fools, it's the Strog Scalebearer taken away. Another kind of personal respect ban, I think that one was. And the Sorlag coming out from dooi. And then Awoken, it will be Keel and BJ. So, I mean, first initial thoughts here, looking at the champions alone, I think that the clashing in playstyle, with the exception of Awoken, is very much apparent in the champions they've picked.
Yeah, absolutely. This comes as no surprise, right? dooi immediately banning the Slash, dramiS responding by first picking Athena and then going for the Strog, the other crouch slider on the second map, going up against the Sorlac, so we've got a bit of a power imbalance there. Also interesting, dooi banning Tower of Koth, which I think is a map that could generally really fit his playstyle well, but still not comfortable or not interested in playing it against a player like dramiS at least. And then to conclude this series, we will be jumping into Awoken, much smaller map than the previous two, where we're going to see VJ go up against the Keel. So interestingly enough, not a single map where both champions are from the same category. There's always going to be one player who has that base advantage when it comes to stack, but also it tends to be slower and have a larger hitbox to compensate.
But we always starting to see the Keel a little bit more from dramiS as time is going on, and it is just about aim more than anything. dramiS very much known for that execution, the movement, the aim, kind of all of it combined. Very high octane player, I think it's definitely fair to say about dramiS. And Keel can be, I mean, no pun intended, quite the explosive pick on a small map. He has that one opportunity. The grenades can shut down certain areas. It's going to be really hard to challenge him on, the two items. If he's got a large stack and he's got grenades, right, he's got a rocket launcher. It's like, well, how do I even try and fight this back? But dooi, a player that is good at looking for the magic moment, that one opportunity to take that one frag, and then that can sometimes be the decider of the entire map. However, predictions Flea. And I'm curious to see what chat thinks as well. Let me know in chat which side you think will take this, because there is quite a dynamic between these two players, isn't there?
Definitely. This is a difficult one to pick. If we look at the historical results, last time these two players went head-to-head, quite some time ago, it was back in the third stage of the first season, it was actually dramiS who won 2-1. So historically speaking, he won the last time they faced off against each other. But as you already mentioned, Ketchup, dramiS has had a very rough start to this season of the Quake Pro League. He's only managed to win a single match, and that was against Maxter. But luckily for him, that was his previous appearance in the Quake Pro League. So maybe he can finally start building some momentum. That said, though, I am still more inclined to give it to dooi, because even though dramiS is just so aggressive and fast, he doesn't have the slash to play with, and I think that dooi can probably react too much that he's going to throw out this game.
So it should be a chill day. Strap yourselves in. Thank you so much for joining us. Just remind everyone, Quake Pro League. This is Season 2. The difference in format, how every single map counts. It's all about the prize money now. So even if it is a 2-0, there's that final map that still matters. And especially now, you know, we are dawning on that later end of stage 1, with the stage 1 finals right around the corner. So any maps that you can take here, whether it's going to be your bracket, whether it's going to, you know, be the difference between relegation or not, things are starting to get quite scary, because that challengers bracket that has been filling up is getting quite scary. If you look at the players that are in there, I mean, the relegation matches could be some of the spiciest I think we've ever seen. Flea?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't check exactly what has changed in comparison to last week, but there are indeed many top contenders, players who were previously in the Quake Pro League themselves, such as Sib. Think of Sirius, a man who is looking to make his long-awaited return onto the Quake Pro League. He was an absolute menace, and now, of course, he's signed by Maestro. And Maestro is, of course, home to some of the absolute best players, not just in Europe, but the entire world. So maybe that base that he has in terms of support can help him really shine this time around. But all of that just adds to the point. Challengers is spicy. Things are heating up. There's a lot of really good players, and they are hungry, looking for an opportunity, because we have seen players such as CNZ, right? We're looking at Maxter right now. Those are the players who weren't in the Quake Pro League from the beginning, but they made their way into the league, fought hard, and secured themselves these well-deserved positions. So, of course, if you're an onlooker and you see that, that's something that you want for yourself as well, to play and rumble with the best.
So while we're waiting for both players to be in the lobby so we can get this show on the road, some other matches that we can definitely look forward to. Effortless and Nosfa, Saigib versus Dahang, Maxter. Wait a minute, am I looking at the right one? Yes, Maxter versus Rafa, Avex Party, and then Wenger Cypher being the final matchup. A quick note, CND versus Razia has been postponed, so apologies, won't be on stream today, but it will be played out, just not on today's broadcast. But when results happen, I'm sure you'll be able to find that one out on the Quake social media, or the following show, as things tend to be. But good to see players like Avec back in the fray. I know Avec had quite the return last week, and I know that you lovely people at home are happy to see him back as well. Now, we always do see when's Avec coming back? And I'm glad he was able to be back and is able to give his A game fresh out of the box.
Oh yeah, Avec last week taking down Wenger, if I'm not mistaken, clearly showing that that time away from the scene hasn't affected his skills too much. And he is hungry too, right? If I'm not mistaken, Avec is currently ranked 5 in the leaderboards for Europe, at least. And Ketchup, I still remember, not all that long ago, the two of us in the studio talking about how Avec is just barely getting by, barely staying ahead of that relegation territory, right? Just having essentially a few points ahead of the person below him. And look at how he's performing right now, taking down Wenger, beating some of the absolute top players in the world. The man is really shaping up to be a major threat in the Stage 1 finals.
But I think that's why we said, you know, last when we were in that studio, which feels like forever ago now. This has been a very long or quick year, depending on which way you look about it. But I think that's why when we were talking about those early stages of Season 1, that we would constantly say, like, it's weird talking about this. It's very strange to be talking about Avec not being that successful, because he is one of the most legendary players of Quake, and he's a real fan favorite, and we know that he has what it takes to go all the way, because he'd seen grand finals of major tournaments in Quake Champions. But, you know, that was history. And the future is now, and that future for Avec looks quite bright, doesn't it? With some impressive results, and we'll be seeing him today, so if he can continue that momentum. He is looking better and better, and it is great to have him back. But that is just one of our matchups. You know, we have got other matchups to get through as well. But as we currently wait for the lobby to be good to go. Sorry, by the way, everyone, for the delay. Rest assured, the second we're good to jump in and start the map, we will as soon as possible. We want to start the show just as much as you do, but get the show shared out. Social media, hashtag Quake Pro League. Let us know who your favorite players are. My rabbit has just entered the room and is currently going under the bed. Get out from there. Come back. Sorry. get out. I'm gonna have to subtly let my partner know to come in and quickly get out. Yeah, take it away. Take it, Flea. Help me out. Help.
Yeah, I'll take it away, Ketchup. And today, of course, we will later on be joined once again by the immaculate DJ Wheat, a fan favorite, a man who has been around as long as time itself. One of the esports OGs, and he will be joining us later for the two final matches of the day, which are, of course, Avec versus Sparty and Wenger versus Cypher. They are our highlighted matches, our show matches to end things out with. But before that, of course, plenty more to come. dramiS versus dooi will be the first one, just waiting for the players to get everything ready and set up in the lobby. But then we are jumping into things as soon as they are ready and once the rabbit situation is resolved.
Oh, it's already done. It's already done, though. My Amy, she was swift. She was quick. She came in, swooped her up, and now we're good to go. She's very powerful. She can open the door with her face, and she didn't do it before. Now she's too smart for her own good. That's it. Never underestimate how smart rabbits can be. But we do actually have dramiS in the lobby. So again, thanks everyone for your patience. We should be good to go. Both players, I think, are just confirming whether they're ready. And then we'll actually be starting off the Blood Covenant. So let's actually talk about map 1 for a little bit. We do see dooi with the Ranger, the famous dooi orb, never forget. And then dramiS locking in that Athena, which is always, if you can't go Slash and you've already got an Athena or vice versa, it's a devastating team of characters to have on this map because it is about that movement, that mobility, the fact that dramiS can just fly around wherever he wants to go. And dooi needs to show a lot of respect to that. Thankfully, he is going to have that orb, the burst potential, mobility, whatever the case may be. But as I've always said, dooi, a player that just plays for that one moment to just take things in his favor. And the champions can be quite I think, an extension of that. And when it comes to dooi, he does use the orb for mobility, but his orb usage in combat really is why, when I think of the Ranger orb in this context, dooi is one of the main players I think of, because he's very specific with it compared to others.
Oh yeah, and same goes for just the fights that he takes, right? You said it yourself, he's very reserved, very calculated. Quake is, above everything else, a game of probabilities. And you very often have players who decide, okay, 60% in my favor, this is a fight that I'm going to take. dooi is not that kind of player. He will wait for the perfect situation where he gets the upper hand, the better positioning, the better weapon choice, and then once he feels like there's a 9 out of 10 chance that he will win, that is the moment that he strikes. That's when he pounces on his opponent, and of course, the infamous dooi orb coming out to help him in that as well. But on the other hand, Blood Covenant's a pretty tall map. A lot of verticality. Athena is extremely meta on this map. She's probably one of the best picks when it comes to Blood Covenant alone. So he's going to be facing quite some challenges if he tries to land that orb.
Constant access to the hourglasses is something we always have to talk about as well. These champions that, because of just the nature of how their abilities work, if there is an hourglass, they can probably take it. And taking that away from Ranger means that you're going to have constant movement. And he might not necessarily have as much access to the dire orb as he would. So the warm-up is coming to a close. It's going to be dramiS and dooi, match number 1 here for our latest week of Quake Pro League. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your patience. We appreciate that. And now, we're good to go.
Game is starting off without any immediate aggression. dooi picking up his own item, the Mega Health. dramiS sticking more towards the heavy side of things, but he's lacking a lot of weapons. Doesn't have the LG, doesn't have the rockets, up until he just picked it up. And this is pretty standard start for a map like this. Both players just want to go ahead and pick up the items that they need. dooi eating a bad rocket there, though. This is putting dramiS in a slightly more advantageous position, as he's looking to secure the Mega Health instead from this rotation.
And that will be Mega soaked up happily. Plenty of hourglasses behind him if he needs to fall back onto them. And it's just about that initial information, you know, fair idea over where doooi's going to be right now. Has the rail angle, but both players able to return. dramiS, unfortunately, not able to quite hit his one, so doooi's going to get that initial little bit of a push, taking some of the armor that might exist down there. And here comes the item rotation for another time. And it is that kind of classic start to the map, isn't it? Where neither player wants to be too push heavy. The rails setting the tone. Lovely second rail as dooi gets the drop down. Perfect call out from dramiS. And that rail means that dooi is just, I mean, wow! Just does
those
the math.
rockets!
Does
dooi!
The math! That is confidence, Lee. That is confidence to know that if I orb and I land my shots, it doesn't matter that I was at death's door 5 bloody seconds ago.
It all came down to that first rocket. If dooi would not have landed a direct flying up with the orb and picking up the mega, he would have been dead for sure. But he landed a beautiful rocket, knocking dramiS off balance, and then of course adding on and piling more and more damage. But dramiS fearless rushing in, using the hook to steal away the mega, doing exactly what dooi did to him just seconds ago to tie things right back up 1-1.
There's the initial catch. Nice weapon usage there from dooi, but he returns! The orb, dramiS was ready. I think he listened out for the orb the second he heard it. Just ready for the rail angle, hitting 2 in a row. His rails have been doing the absolute business so far. And it's how he capitalizes.
63% railgun accuracy for dramiS.
90 damage rocket as well. This is a bad mix, and the shotgun to finish. I mean, he's just going to do the math there, isn't he? He knows he's weak enough. Finish the job.
This is looking good for dramiS fans. He is playing so confident right now, and that is something that I feel like we missed in those earlier games. After losing maybe his first 2 matches in this season of the Quake Pro League, it really seemed like there was perhaps a bit of a mental block when it comes to dramiS. But after beating Maxter last week, or 2 weeks ago rather, he seems to have found his mojo once again. Seems a lot more confident, landing all of the shots that he needs and constantly applying pressure. He knows that when he plays someone like dooi, you cannot allow them free reign of the map, because they will play so passively and reactively to anything you do that you have to be the one to pressure them.
Looking for dooi. Dooi's going to spring the trap, but oh, no reward really. He's able to put himself in position for mega. So we'll see if that helps him out, but he's just not able to return the damage. The tri-bolt is going to finish it. dooi, I mean, part 1 of the trap was set. dramiS had no idea dooi was waiting near teleporter, but wasn't quite able to get the surprise damage. Was able to at least position himself on mega, but it is coming down to damage constantly. The fact that dramiS is always the one that's in full control of these items, even though there is a difference between the light and the medium champions, it just doesn't matter, because dramiS is staying so stacked anyway. The orbs haven't had an opportunity to really matter that much in the fight either, because the damage that dramiS is dishing out is so good. However, that missed rail punished heavily.
And there's the very interesting statistic that we don't get to talk about enough, but dramiS has so far hit around 11 rockets and done nearly 900 damage. Wow. That means that he's doing over 80 damage per rocket that lands. They are some hefty shots. Of course, there's a lot of spam, so he's gonna miss a few, but when the rocket does connect, it's almost never for anything lower than like 70 points of damage, and that is making it so difficult for dooi to really get into the game. dramiS is slapping him around and doing most of the damage, missing almost nothing. Oh, very patient. Just waiting for the orb to be used. Doesn't want to fire prematurely, and then just surgically takes down dooi.
Now dooi is starting to find himself in quite an alarming position, because we've just hit that 5-minute warning. He's piling into these fights. There is a lot of confidence. The confidence secured him that first frag to begin with. But again, the combos, the damage, dramiS bringing the A game. We're talking about weapons alone, but as dooi continues to push in these fights, it's not really working anymore. dramiS is ready for it. When the fight inevitably happens, he's confident. He's hitting these opening rails, so dooi's getting shut down. The swap to the rocket, even more damage. An orb that's not allowed to exist. And another frag goes to dramiS. It's looking kind of rough for dooi right now. Ooh.
I feel like dooi has taken an uncharacteristic amount of risk so far. Like that first frag, sure, it went his way, but that's about the only one that did. He has to play it a bit more patiently than this, because he constantly ends up in these bad engagements where he uses his orb, and it doesn't really amount to the advantage that he needs to secure the frag, and then dramiS just uses that extra mobility, just like there, using the rail, or the hook rather, mid-fight, to get himself that slightly better angle, that better position to finish up the frag. And dooi, he uses the orb, but never to the same effect.
dramiS is hitting some absolutely fantastic shots as well. His aim in general. And it's just making him such a pain in the middle of combat. The orb, at least, is able to secure one here. But, I mean, let's just look at the maths. 8 frags in not a lot of time left. Gets a lovely prediction rocket, but dramiS able to jump clean over it. The rail, a rare miss, honestly, with the shots that dramiS has hit. But also, a lot of these rails that are landing preemptively, those before the fight happens. dramiS is in position before dooi is. And it is that mobility. It is the fact that he's just rocking this Athena so heavily. And, you know, we know what dramiS can do with those high-octane champions. He's always got that rail angle ready, and dooi kind of just goes right into it. Takes that rail, and then he's not really healthy for the next fight. dramiS kind of makes the fight happen.
Right now, dramiS has exactly 1,000 points of damage dealt over his opponent, as dooi goes in aggressively, but the stairs, they are tricky to land the rockets on, and dramiS using the hook expertly to get out of a bad situation. Mega is up. He's actually just gonna go fly right on by, land the rail, the combo kill. Even dooi will fall once more. And this is when desperation mode sets in, but is it going to amount to anything? It will not. dramiS, supremely confident with the railgun in close quarters to get himself yet another frag. That's a 10-point lead catch-up. Is it GG?
Oh yeah, surely. Absolutely. I would be shocked if somehow dooi is able to pull this win out. Because, I mean, there just reaches that point where it's like, it's 2 minutes away and he's got to get 10 frags. It can't be done. I don't believe. But from this point, dooi, he went all in at the start, and his style of being kind of always ever present and looking for that orb to get that extra damage, unfortunately, when he's used... Oh, my God.
Nasty. Oh, that's the only way you can describe that. dramiS still 63% railgun. Oh, hang on. Ketchup. dramiS has not fired a single lightning gun cell. Literally 0. It's all been rockets and rail. The lightning gun has just been completely unused by him so far. dooi has done around 720 points of damage with that weapon, so he is utilizing it a lot more, but dramiS is just completely ignoring the weapon in its entirety. That's just something I don't think I've ever seen in a Quake Pro League match before.
And I quite like the idea behind it, though, because if you're dooi and you know, you're in a situation where you really want to get that trap sprung, and you want to be able to really maximize the kit that you've got. Lovely finish. If dramiS goes in for an LG and dooi's got a rocket launcher and orb and he's Ranger, right? So less splash damage and all that stuff. It's a very dangerous room to go in. And if dramiS doesn't need, I mean, clearly doesn't need the weapon because he's just hitting so many rockets and rails for damage. Why put himself in harm's way, I suppose? Why give dooi that avenue to bring himself back into this match? And this whole fight has just been range upon range upon range. And then when dramiS goes in for the kill, the rockets are hitting their absolute worth. It's been a fantastic shot. No, dramiS, he got the LG out. Oh, no, he breaks the streak. Why? We had 20 seconds left.
I can't believe he did that. dramiS, come on. At least he's at 66% LG right now, but it would have been wonderful to end with 0 LG shots fired. But this is looking good for dramiS, Ketchup. Very convincing and commanding victory this time around. So we're about to move into the second map. And I think that he's got the momentum. He's just got to keep this up. But what I'm expecting from dooi is a lot more of the disciplined playstyle that we're expecting of him, right? I think that first push, that was such high risk. It paid off in the end. He secured Mega and got the frag. He died afterwards. Okay, that's all right. Still a tight game. But then dooi just kept on putting himself in very risky situations where I just really don't feel like the odds were all that much in his favor. So moving into the next map, what I'm personally expecting to see is that dooi is going to go back to the basics and rely on what works, which is for him that very passive playstyle.
And then at the same time, it was just how dramiS can maximize those crazy mobility champions. The amount of times that dramiS was able to really get to whatever item he wanted without having to rely too heavily on things like jump pads. The amount of times in Mega he was just able to, grappling hook straight up without needing a jump pad. He beat dooi to the punch. A lot of items actually where dramiS gets there just milliseconds before dooi does, and then he can win the fight afterwards. But that was the strength of a talented Athena player on a map like Blood Covenant, and why it can be such a devastating combo, and why a lot of people think that she's one of the absolute best champions in the game on that map specifically. Now, Molten Fools. It's going to be a heavy versus a medium. Sorlag from dooi, and it's going to be the Strog coming out from dramiS. So dramiS does get his first crouch slider of the match. Slash was removed. One day, that's not going to be Death Knight. It will be one day. But you know what? It's nice to see Death Knight have his appearance in the Quake Pro League at least once. Look, there he is. Yeah. Look how cool he looks. Look at his cool helmet. Got buffed recently as well, didn't he? Got buffed.
Yeah, indeed. Flames do more damage now. Damage over time as well when you step in them. So definitely a bit of a buff. We hopefully are going to see him maybe in Stage 1 finals, where it's not just going to be 3 maps only, but they're going to be best of 5s and such. So there might be more of an opportunity for him to see some play time. But just to pick up on what you just said, this is worrying for dooi, right? First map, he immediately banned Slash because he knows how much of a threat dramiS is when he has access to a crouch landing champion. Still lost, drastically so. And now map 2, what does dramiS have at his disposal? Strog, another crouch slider. So dooi, picking Sorlag is a good choice, because Sorlag, of course, she's got quite a lot of stack, she's chunky, and she has that mobility to try and evade and dodge a very aggressive crouch slider. So it's a decent counter pick, but dooi still has to be on guard.
And we've seen crouch sliders on this map always just do incredibly well. So much room and space for them to just kind of build up that speed and glide around corners. And the corners can be kind of scary, actually, because the speed of which they can pull through. Even if you are trying to set a trap for a player using one of those champions, they can overwhelm you so quickly. But that's where I think in some of these fights, the large nature, the fact that there is that much greater stack for a champion like Sorlag might come into play, but you do kind of expect dooi to be the patient one here. He kind of has to be. Information is key. You cannot let dramiS kind of slip away from any of these situations, but looks like we're loading in now. Molten Fools. This warm-up is coming to a close. dramiS and dooi. dramiS dominantly taking map 1. Can he take map 2 in the same fashion?
Starting off on his perspective at least, but that's not looking good. The Spit with the LG taking him down quickly. Very aggressive push from dooi, knowing that he could get to that weapon first, and that he also had that aggressive ability at his disposal, but he's got to be careful. dramiS landing a crucial rail to stop his opponent from pushing onto that Mega, as he's now chasing dooi now. He knows that his opponent still isn't all that healthy. He knows that he has the advantage, and he wants to do something with it too.
dooi spending some time just to kind of recharge those batteries, get that stack back up. Heavy now going to spawn, but with dramiS timing on both of them perfectly. dooi, this is a bit of a scary game to play, because although he's able to get the Mega, can't quite get what could have been quite a cute little ring out. The danger is that there's no armor here, so dramiS will continue the push, especially after that rail. dooi so weak. You know that dramiS is going to be looking for an opportunity to finish that one. LG all the way. Unlikely you're really going to miss many of those cells with the large champion. Sorlag pretty vulnerable to that one. Heavy spawning again with dramiS taking it. And there has been kind of, the I take one, you take one, but the speed alone, dramiS doesn't want it for long. Talking of speed, that rail has actually set dooi off at 1,000 miles an hour. But dramiS was ready for the speed at least. Had the rocket. That prediction rocket almost landed, even with Sorlag going that fast. I mean, that's map awareness, and that's just awareness of the game right there.
And that's just a bit of information for dramiS right there. He wasn't really expecting that to do anything, but just to know where his opponent was at. And now he's actually got a very solid rotation going on. Heavy first, around 6 seconds later to a Mega spawns, and with this stack advantage he should be able to just bully dooi off the item. The Nemesis player still goes in for a rail, misses the shot, and that allows dramiS to just push on through relentlessly. And now dooi just has to play it a little bit more passively, wait for another opportunity to do some damage and maybe steal this next major item, the Heavy. dramiS whiffs those shots. This is an opportunity for dooi. He can now set up on the Mega Health because dramiS wasted a lot of time securing the Heavy as he was unable to do that opening damage. And now the Sorlag player might be the first to pick it up. LG on LG, rockets coming out. They're not doing enough. dooi, can he find the final shot? He does. Threading the needle as his opponent tries to escape through the doorway. And that is dooi once again in the lead.
Yeah, dramiS did try and sort of pull himself back from that situation. Missing the Pika, and the Pika at least letting him know that he's nowhere to be found, detonates the Kamikaze as soon as possible to just try and stop there being any chance that doooi's just going to take it for free, but wasn't quite able to do it anyway. And then, you know, the rest was history there as it's 2-1 for the Nemesis boy. But 3 minutes already taken place. This has been quite a rapid map, it feels like. dramiS keeping the stack up, and this is a nice... Oh.
Sneaky.
You gotta be careful with Sorlag too, because she's a lot bigger, so it's kind of hard to hide around certain corners when you got a big old tail poking through the wall. But oh, the perfect trap was sprung. I think that entire string of LG, and dare I say this entire frag, kind of stemming from the fact that at the very beginning, dramiS did not really know that dooi was up there. Ah! Oh, I mean, actually...
That was intentional.
Yeah, it does look intentional. Very much so. Especially with the items about to spawn. Refreshing yourself. And you can afford to do that as a Sorlag, though, because you have the larger stack. Why allow him to refrag?
That was indeed a good play by dooi. I love how he just played it very passively. Typical dooi. And then just sprung the trap. That's going to be a trade. Let's see, is anyone going to get the better spawn? Heavy will be closer to... dooi, but actually he goes up to the teleporter first, and it will be dramiS rather securing it first. And now it's a race for the Mega. Once again, two fast champions. dramiS gets there first. Rockets, can they finish it? Looks like both players don't want to commit till the end, don't want to go for the deathmatch just yet, as they return to their respective camps.
And there's the acid. There is going to be health nearby, though, but it does make the advance a bit obvious. dooi had the rail angle because he knows that dramiS was looking for that light health to stop the damage over time. Oh, that Kamikaze certainly hurt, though. Now, dooi, the past couple of minutes, has tactically had no regard for his own well-being. You know, we saw the tactical self-frag, and then we saw the trade afterwards in the immediate fight. But it is stuff that kind of lets you think outside the box a little bit. You know, remember that Sorlag spawned with such a giant stack compared to a lot of champions in the game. However, it will be dramiS now. Rails for days, 2 of them in a row. That's now going to cause a bit of a tricky position here for dooi. He's not going to be able to fight for this heavy too much. There is too much difference between the items.
Yeah, dramiS's rail, just like in the previous map, is his favorite weapon. It's currently sitting at 69% railgun accuracy. Nice indeed. As he's leaving up the Mega deliberately, knowing that he's got the stack advantage to try and hunt out dooi some more. Very well aware of the fact that if he does end up taking damage, he can just loop right back around and pick up the item he's protecting behind him.
He's always looking for that opening rail. dramiS, you can just see the intensity, the fast pace. Always looking to just get that one angle on dooi, that cheeky rail. That one cheeky rail can set the tone of so many fights here with dramiS and dooi. But, indeed, dooi hits the defensive position. I do not think dramiS was prepared for dooi to be right round that corner. Getting a little bit more information than he bargained for with that Pika.
Yeah, definitely getting a little lucky right there, dramiS. If the Pika had flown up slightly higher and didn't actually block dooi from moving in, dramiS could have been a lot of trouble. But instead, the Pika just blocked his opponent and absorbed the blast, allowing him to get away relatively unharmed. Both players, though, still playing this extremely rapidly. Neither looking to really slow down, as we are currently tied in terms of score. With around 3.5 minutes left to go, both are just zooming around the map, flying, wondering when they'll run into their opponent next. dramiS actually doing a fair bit of damage to these speakers so far. dooi unable to take most of them down before they connect.
But this is the difference between this map and the last map that we saw. How often dramiS was able to kind of put himself in position and land that initial rail that just causes so many problems. This will be a fight anyway, and a perfect pickup with some lights just to stop the acid. That one tick did give dooi information to get in and out to say, I need this rail and I need to be gone, because if dramiS is continuing the push, maybe I don't want to be here. But how often dramiS is kind of looking to make chase to get that first bit of damage, but dooi, he's just around the corner every single time. Thankfully, he has got speed of his own. Watch out! Whoa! That was close. Almost a ring out right there.
We've seen some tragic things on that part of the map before, so definitely gotta be careful. We'll see another big confrontation, rockets flying around, and it will be dramiS once again extending his lead. And as you mentioned yourself, the items have been instrumental to this. dramiS currently sitting at 24 major items collected, whereas dooi barely has 4 of them. That's an enormous difference. That even that higher base tag that StoreLeg has doesn't allow you to offset that sheer item dominance that dramiS is working with right now.
The only thing it really does for dooi so far is means he can't be immediately bullied the second he spawns. You know, because there is just so much stack that if dooi gets one decent weapon, he can kind of fight his own corner a little bit. But that's kind of where it ends. dramiS has kept his stack so much higher than dooi's every step of the way of this map that it doesn't really mean anything that dooi has this larger stack because he's not able to establish anything. Now, that's a good rail, but as dramiS backs up, the Mega about to spawn, looks like dooi should be able to take it, but we are going to have a potential to shift gears a little bit if he wants to. However, Mega actually wasn't taken by dooi at all. dooi trying to stay extremely safe, and it is a bold play to not make your presence known near these items, because now dramiS, he has the Mega, he's going to stop things with the light health, and now there's under a minute and a half to get 3 frags. I think this is quite a tall order. Ooh, threading the needle with that one, boys.
Juicy shot indeed, and he's trying to pester his opponent a bit more with the peeker. Indeed, does so successfully, and now all the pressure is on dooi. He barely has a minute left, and look at this, the rails keep landing. Absolutely no way for dooi to get back into this game. He might be able to secure the Mega right here, but it's time that he needs, and time is not his ally this time around.
That is dramiS saying, go on, take the Mega. It just means that I'll make sure that we are as far away from each other on the map as possible. And this will be a minute of dramiS just playing the hide-and-seek game, I think. Information for where dooi's going to be. Any bonus frags on the pretty obvious movement. You know, dooi he can't be careful anymore. He has to just pile his way in. So dramiS is going to have those defensive shots lined up. But he has no reason to push anymore. You know, this should, by all means, be a done deal and a 2-0 for dramiS, as we'll be going on to Awoken, that third and final map. dooi's able to get 1 frag here, but delaying the respawn. 10 seconds on the clock. No possibility right here. 10 seconds. I mean, does he get him right at the last second? I mean, does he? He's not going to spawn right next to him, is he? You know, no, if we had an extra few seconds, there might have been hope.
Absolutely.
Right there.
So often it ends up just like that, but once again dramiS securing a map, and this, if you're a dramiS fan, this is incredible to see, right? We talked about it before we jumped into the game. dramiS had a very difficult start in this season of the Quake Pro League, being ranked at the very bottom of the NA leaderboards, going weeks without winning a single series, but right now, beating Maxter last time, now getting that 1-up over dooi. This is looking a lot more like the dramiS that we all know and love from some of the previous stages.
Absolutely, and we are about to see a little bit more of it potentially as we go into Awoken. But yeah, it's unfortunate for dooi. I think he'll be disappointed in that. You know, he's always a very sort of pumped player, and he's very confident in himself, I think. But the problem with today, it was just dramiS constantly. The rails and the rockets were such a pain. The LG just barely even needed to exist today, which has been a very unusual circumstance. I think we've seen such little LG from dramiS across both of these maps, and it just might be one of those days where he feels especially confident in the rocket and the rail. And I mean, to his credit, the amount of crazy shots he's been able to hit here, I can't say I fault him. And then also at the same time, you know, he's been fighting off against dooi, who isn't really known to constantly use those super rapid, high-speed light champions. He just kind of like his mediums and his heavies. So if you are a very confident rail and rocket player, it's just the champions alone means that you can be a little bit more successful with those shots consistently.
Absolutely, and if it works, why change it? When you're halfway through Blood Covenant, you realize, hang on, I'm actually winning this significantly so without having used the lightning gun even once. Why change it? Why even put yourself at risk going for these medium fights where you're bound to take a lot of damage yourself when you could be playing that exact same game of either railing from a safe distance or just really getting up close and personal, or either just deterring your opponent from even entering the room with those massive chonkers flying around their face. That said and done, though, we are about to move into the final map of this series. Ketchup, you already mentioned it. This is Awoken. dramiS this time not running any fast champions whatsoever, but one of the chunkiest in the business. It's Keel going up against dooi playing the BJ.
So we have actually we've seen the Keel coming out from dramiS recently, actually, and it was a lot more successful than maybe I think we expected. Because when you think of a player like dramiS, you don't really associate Keel with that style. He does like his execution, he does like his speed, his mobility, just being able to zip around this map. And, you know, like we saw on the Molten Falls just now, where it was all about trying to set up those cheeky rail angles, of which his rail has been incredible today. And there's still room for that to continue to be excellent as we do go on to Awoken. But it is just the utility alone of the grenades, and it is that restack. It is the fact that you spawn as Keel. If you've got grenades and you've got a rocket launcher and you've only just appeared back on the map, you're pretty much good to go, because it's hard to challenge. He's got so much stack to work with that if you try and push him, he can just delete you straight away. And the BJ, the dual wield, might kind of help that for dooi. It's another champion that kind of exaggerates that style of looking for that key moment. But the key moment is something that I think has been more of a dramiS advantage so far, because when there are those kind of close range fights, dramiS is the one that's consistently winning them.
Yeah, absolutely. The decisive shots are almost all going in dramiS's favor. So let's see if that will persist this time around, as we're once again starting on the big man's perspective, jumping onto Keel. Now dramiS starting on the LG side of the map, immediately rushing into dooi, landing a pineapple too. Can he do the final bit of damage? He can! 18 seconds for the first frag. A very aggressive push indeed.
And that dooi went down with the rail in hand means that dramiS doesn't really have to go out of his way to get the rail either, which I think is going to be really useful for establishing this early control of the map, because now he's looking for more rocket damage, the rail to shut down the Mega. Now it is likely he's going to back off and try and restack a little bit here. Keel is always one of those larger champions, and the rails, they trade. Oh, and dooi manages to find the kill shot, but you can just see how much work he has to do every time just to take out Keel once.
Keel indeed does have a tremendous stack that you always have to eat through before you can put a dent in the score count. And dramiS is of course extremely well aware of that. Once again looping around to the railgun, his been preferred weapon for today, almost flying off the map. I was still on dramiS's perspective, but that railgun almost knocked him into the waters of Awoken, just barely staying within the arena, as dooi now finally starts applying some more pressure. dooi in the lead with some of the items going in his favor is something we've rarely seen on these previous maps, where it's been dramiS dominating most of that. LG on LG, but the dual wield and the rockets come through clutch as dooi finally extends his lead.
Especially seeing as in that opening fight, dramiS hitting 2 of those rails that dooi got like barely any LG damage for. I was a bit nervous for him in that situation, but what I'm nervous for now is that armor count. Take a look at the green all over dramiS's score. And that is going to allow him to consistently remind you that he exists on these items. Now, 5 seconds away from Mega spawning, dooi in position for another time, and dramiS just pushing his way forward. He has got some grenades ready to go. He's got all the weapons he needs as well. And that is something that dooi will show a lot of respect to.
It is, of course, difficult to do so on a map this small, though. Staying away from that hulking giant with an enormous amount of stack. Don't forget, dramiS can actually literally get up to 200 points of armor playing Keel, which is insane. Just look at the difference in stack at the top of the screen. dooi in absolutely no position to take a fight like this. He needs to find some sneaky angles, get some rail damage in, but it's still dramiS dishing out most of the pain.
One thing dramiS has always been absolutely fantastic with, it is setting himself up for those rail shots that just catch you by surprise. I guess it's a byproduct of being so prominent with those high mobility champions that kind of excel at positioning themselves faster than you. But on a map like this that is as small as it is, it's not going to take a crazy fast champion for dramiS to be able to apply that kind of rail pressure. And if you have got this large stack, dooi, you can see the respect on his side. For the past couple of minutes, he's been just looking for that one opportunity to just try and make something significant happen. But when is the right opportunity? When dramiS has as much... I mean, look at this. He's just taken the heavy. And you look at the difference in stack. Dewey's probably sitting there just, he has to be so careful, but it's like, what do you do in this position? The dual wield has popped, but it's too little too late. A complete waste. That's going to be gone for about 40 seconds, unless he can get some hourglasses, but it's just, the stack difference alone has me very nervous here. dramiS is constantly chipping away at Dewey's stack, while Dewey's not really able to return the favor at all. And while he's doing that, dramiS is just getting himself healthier and healthier.
This is indeed a worrying outlook for Dooi, the nemesis player. He's got dramiS stuck in a bad position. I'm actually surprised he didn't push his luck a bit further right there. dramiS was caught up in an awful situation, magnet for damage, and now Dooi will lose out on the Mega in the end. I feel like he could have made more with that situation. Sometimes really feels like Dooi takes strange and uncharacteristic situations to go on the offense, when the odds really aren't that much in his favor, but then in other situations he has an opportunity to do so much more, and he just lets it pass by. Maybe it's because it's the final map, maybe he just really wants to get at least 1 point on the board today. We'll see how that pans out.
It's the nature of Season 2 of the Pro League. Every single map counts. It's all about the prize money at the end of the day, and that Dooi knows that this is a very Dooi style. So look at the fact that we've got 5 minutes. They're even. All it takes is 1 frag, but that was nearly a ring out. Oh, what a bonus grenade that Dooi barely had time to react to. The second it landed and made that little noise, no way you can get away, and this will be a push from dramiS, but dramiS is not going to overextend. 1 bad rocket could still turn the tides here. And the important thing is putting yourself in position for Mega. Take that control away from Dooi. Continue to control. And it seems like it's been a constant case where Dooi, once again, he's got all the light armors, Flea, but it's 2 heavies, 3 megas versus 9 heavies and 8 megas for dramiS.
Yeah, and you need those major items, especially when you're playing a heavy, large champion that has this amount of stack. Because if you don't, you're only going to be able to get up to that 100-100 base level. You really need to get more of those big items to even come close to what your opponent can have off the bat. Now, it is promising, though, that we are seeing more of that classic Dooi, like you said yourself. This is how I was expecting him to play the previous 2 maps as well, but it seems like he's only switched to this playstyle very late into the series. Waiting for just the right time. That's a good rail.
But this is very much so the patented Dooi patience, though, isn't it? Where consistently dramiS has had a massive stack over him, but he's not quite been able to chase hard enough. And it's not just down to the damage. It is Dewey's kind of retreats. The fact that when he does pull back, there's often a lot of potential for him to get like those defensive rockets that I think dramiS also shows a lot of respect to. Where Dewey's been able to position himself on the map. There's just so many kind of like points here where the defensive rocket spam could be so important. Here comes the dual wield out of nowhere, but the grenade could be a bit of a thorn in the side. That 1 grenade made things a lot more scary for Dewey than I think he wanted it to be.
I feel like the grenades, they haven't done all that much damage, but they've done damage at important moments. Whenever Dewey just seems ready to push in, or he feels like he can stabilize, there's just that 1 grenade that lands. But finally, Dewey landing the railgun, putting himself in the lead. Now the big question is, of course, is he just going to switch to a more passive playstyle? Or will he continue trying to get back into a solid rotation of the items?
Oh, that rail. Looking for it. Almost. Close but no cigar, but dramiS. He's just really spawned himself. There's no LG on his side. He is in position for Mega, but it's not going to spawn for 6 more seconds. So what does dramiS do to try and do this? The defensive spam for Tribal. Trying to shut it down. And I do quite like this idea from dramiS. Get the armor first. It's now going to allow him to kind of make something happen as he pushes forward. But Dewey, this is where that potential gear change, or at the very least, the change in plan. And now it's under 2 minutes on the clock, but it could very easily go south with no armor. dramiS has done a good job of just soaking up the light armors, which might make it a bit annoying for Dewey here.
And dramiS is still playing this appropriately patiently. He went all the way back to pick up the heavy. Now he's going for the mega as well. He isn't on a blind chase just yet. dooi caught in a bad situation. The Rockets needed to be sublime. He missed the last two, unfortunately. Didn't do enough damage. Oh,
No!
off you go!
No!
The rockets and the grenades sent dooi spiraling into the cold, watery depths of Awoken. Still, he has a chance. Just gotta avoid taking those bad rails at this time, though.
No!
2 points of health.
HP! Oh, you know dooi was just looking for the finish there. The fact that dramiS survived with 2, that might be the thing that has allowed dramiS to win this map. A disastrous finish for poor old dooi. The patience for 9 minutes, and it falls apart like that. I mean, you can't not feel bad for the guy. I mean, that's the tragic end. And dramiS working on so much stack now, kind of just where we were at the beginning of the map. The rails are all good. dooi, he's going to have to push now because he hasn't got time to wait around. He's so weak. It's pretty much impossible for him to get a frag at this point, especially with these grenades. And looks for the combo. The rail missed, but that was a done deal anyway. dooi drops down because he has no other choice. That flea will be a GG's. And dooi probably not feeling too great about how that map ended.
dramiS is happy, though. Shooting grenades left and right, a little bit of a victory lap. Some celebration is indeed in order. Congratulations, dramiS. Picking up steam, it seems like a 3-0 victory to dooi after his win to Maxter last time he played. Man is looking like he can finally start building some more of that momentum. And I think that momentum is in part what caused dooi to win here, especially on this final map, right? Playing against a heavy champion, they've got a lot of mass, and a lot of mass allows them to build a lot of speed. So when you play it patiently for as long as dooi did, the one situation where your opponent can get that leg up and build a bit of momentum going into the next rotation, and you are essentially out of luck.
But we are reaching that point now where, you know, if you are lower down on the leaderboards because of just, as we've said before, dramiS having quite a heavy first half in terms of opposition, it is an important time now to secure as many 3-0s as you possibly can. Every map counts. It's all about the accumulated prize money, and there's not a lot of weeks left of stage 1. So this is an opportunity for dramiS to kind of climb up at the last possible minute and really shake up the brackets and the leaderboards. And he's done a good job of doing that today. dooi playing more aggressive, I think, than we're used to in the first 2 maps. And in the final map, going a little bit back more to that patented dooi patience. But, I mean, look, right there. The final moment, there was the ring out and then him really looking for some kind of close encounter. Some of that was splash damage as well, dealt by dramiS himself, and the 2 HP survival. It was an unfortunate finish for dooi, and sometimes it just be like that, doesn't it?
Yep, indeed, and as you mentioned yourself, this is a pretty important result if we're looking at the rankings, because I think there's quite a few players on the NA side of things who are probably thinking that they were relatively safe when it comes to relegation. I'm thinking about players such as Effortless and Maxter, who are positioned 7th and 8th. They might have been feeling a little bit safe looking at dramiS' track record, but now that dramiS has just won 2 matches in a row with that clean 3-0 victory, those players might start to worry a little bit, because it's entirely possible that dramiS still gets himself out of that danger zone.
So we're going to be continuing the America's matchup as CNZ versus Razy has been postponed. Don't worry, it will be a match that is played out, just not on stream today. So apologies for that, but information and all that. Effortless and Nosfer will be our next matchup. And while we prepare things, we are going to go for a quick break. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your patience before match number 1. We are going to go for a break and set up our next game. We'll be right back with more Quake Pro League.